Those of you that are catching up, I'm an intellectual property attorney that does patents and trademarks, as well as run a few of my startups. And this podcast, we go through some of the inventive journeys of different individuals as they've got their business up and going, and the highs and the lows, and how their business is going, and what they faced, and kind of what their journey is. And so today we have on the show Jerry Pierce. I'll let him tell a little bit about his businesses and what he does. But welcome, Jerry.
Hey, thank you, Devin. It's an honor to be with you today. So, my name's Jerry Pierce.
Let's start out. I'll kind of let you jump in and kind of tell a little bit about what your business or businesses are, and kind of your journey to get to where you are today.
Great. Sounds good.
So, with that, kick it off.
I'm a entrepreneur by heart. Started kind of when my dad was, when I was born and raised with my father being an entrepreneur. He held a couple of different companies of his own, mostly in the food business, restaurant industry. So I kind of took that to heart and decided, maybe that's kind of where my mindset is. I also have ADD. So that keeps my mind spinning 100 miles an hour all day long, and even while I try to sleep. So things are always spinning in my head. So I got my first business I started in 1991 was a mobile disc jockey company. And to this day, I still broker events, mostly around the community that I live. But I had a broadcasting background and kind of went into the mobile scene at a younger age. And we're now, 26 years strong into this thing. So that still exists, mostly upon request by those who know that I still do this type of work. I had a health and nutrition company that I started up a couple of years ago, back when there was a certain diet craze going on. Since then, that's kind of gone by the wayside, but it was a good little startup. And so now it's led us to kind of where we're at. I have a background in real estate, been a licensed real estate agent for 14 years. And with that background has led me into this new startup company.
Well, cool. Well, that's a pretty good and eclectic background. So I know that I've been to a few events or where you DJ'd at, but I didn't know that you actually did it as part of a profession back in the day. So that's interesting to know. Yeah.
So it was a fun time.
Well, cool. Well, maybe to give everybody in the listening audience a bit of a background. So Jerry is a client of Miller IP, and we got connected up. They have the idea for My Trip Stay and mytripstay.com, and they will be launching as kind of what would be a next generation or a new generation of staying at the kind of the shared economy, and be able to rent out what would be your different properties, and also kind of has a real estate twist on it. So maybe give everybody just a quick background on kind of what that business is, and then a little bit of the journey that took you to decide to launch that as a startup.
All right. So it was about, December 2018. So just over a year ago. We usually do a family Christmas vacation. And I have a travel agent that I work with pretty exclusively on all my travel. And as we were planning this vacation for my family, the one thing that didn't exist in the whole scheme of things was the fact that he couldn't book me in any short-term rental vacation lodging accommodations. He could do my airfare, he could do my rental car, he could do park tickets, but he could not have access to book the accommodations for lodging. And it got frustrating to me, and so I had to actually go out and do it on my own. And as I was sitting there, it was in Mission Bay in San Diego, between the beach and the bay, and my brain just started spinning again with my ADD going on as I was relaxing on the beach, saying, why doesn't this exist in this space? Why isn't the travel industry able to book their clients lodging in short-term rental vacations? So that was kind of the aha moment. And as I came back into town and approached my travel agent / now business partner, we we got brainstorming and created, and which currently is in development, our software for the platform to make that happen and connect the travel industry to the short-term vacation rental market.
Cool. Always great to have those aha moments. So if you to kind of dive into that, so part of the podcast is we kind of go through the journey. So everybody has great ideas, or and I would probably fit that well. You wake up in the morning and your mind gets going, and you have what you think are 5 great ideas that will all make you a millionaire and change the world. And by lunch, you've decided that none of those ideas are probably worthwhile, and you go back to what is the business that you know and love. But kind of walk through maybe a bit of, so you had the idea on the beach, you got back with your, the partner that does kind of the travel bookings and that. And then what was the kind of the process? So, hey, we have a good idea. How did you get going, and what were kind of some of the highs and lows, or things that you was unexpected, or that was more difficult or less difficult than you anticipated?
So as we started brainstorming, we obviously knew that we was going to need a website, a platform to facilitate this. I'm technologically pretty well educated, but I didn't realize what goes into the back end of software. It's not a plug and play site like a lot of these websites offer. There's definitely more to it. So we knew we had to pick a software development team that could see our vision and turn it into reality. It's a time-consuming occasion where, I want things done more on a, right now. I have a little bit of impatient on what my expectations are. Reality check is that it takes time. So, the highs of it, I have this adrenaline and I'm excited to get this thing going. But the low is I'm waiting on a software team to get my product to the market. And, so that's been frustrating. There's been some delays on the back end. There's been staffing concerns and things like that are out of my control with that. So, we're just kind of sitting here patiently waiting. We converse with our software team at least once a week on a video conference, and we go through what's being in development right now and what they expect for us to see. So we're getting there, and we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we'll be able to have a launch about March of this year.
Oh, cool. Well, that's exciting. So far, to summarize, the highs are that it's exciting to get a new business going and see it come together, and the lows are the things that are out of your control or that you can't directly manage, or the things that are the hardest to be patient on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you, maybe diving into a bit, so when you had the idea and you said, okay, this is going to be a largely an e-commerce based, or online e-commerce based system, again, that's where people are going to largely engage with it, and you're saying, okay, we've got myself that knows the real estate, we've got my partner that knows the travel industry, but we need to know the software people. How did you go about kind of identifying or finding them, or did somebody already knew, or did you look, or Google search, the first one that came up, you select it, or how did you kind of go about getting that first step of bringing on additional people to help you out?
That's a good question, because really, where do you start? And I think a lot of people tend to want to go to Google and start searching for professionals in their area. We knew this was probably going to be quite extensive for what we wanted to customize. And so through business networking, we have a great resource center up here, a business resource center here in our local community with the ability to inquire with our representative of what they know or what they can recommend for small business and startups. And we went through a few different software companies on our interviews, and they were all brought by business to business referral. And we selected this one based on what they showed us from the start and our communication with them. So we were pretty impressed with them from the get-go.
Okay, so you went to the small business center. They had people that they could refer, that they had been already referred over to them, and then you went through the interview process, selected the one that you felt the most comfortable with, or you liked their work product the most, and then move forward from there.
Yep, that's exactly how it happened.
Oh, cool. Any other people that you brought on your team, or have you kind of kept it small? I mean, the kind of working different companies and different styles of management. Sometimes you want to keep the team small so you can keep equity in the company, or you can keep control or ownership. And other times you're saying, hey, there's a lot of moving parts. I can only do a part of them, or I only have expertise in some, and I want to bring more on. So how did you kind of decide what was the right size or the right amount of people for your company?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, with it still being a pre-launch startup, it's basically me and my business partner, and then the accessory, applications such as the software development, a little bit of business consulting on the side, but nothing that we've structured to be a part of our group as of yet. There will be some moving parts that we will have to implement. And I think as we get closer to the launch, we're gonna have to start putting those people in places that we're gonna need them most. Then it'll be as much as customer service representatives and some organizational personnel to help us push and grow once we get launched.
Okay, no, makes sense. That's, I said, it's always a step. A lot of times it seems to be a stepwise approach, and sometimes you plan it out well and you have everybody on board, and other times it's kind of as you go along, you have to identify the holes and figure out how to best to plug them. So that's interesting.
Well, and as on a side note of that is with accessory applications, being able to identify that our idea needed to be protected. And this is just basically a plug for you.
Well, I always appreciate it.
Non-solicited, is that, a lot of people just don't understand or realize that intellectual property can be patented. And I think it was very crucial. It was a great discovery for me because this is something I want to protect. I don't want there to be knockoffs and violate, that discovery. And invention. So it was great to connect with you to get an understanding of what I can truly patent and protect.
Well, hey, I always appreciate a good plug. So we'll go with that for just a second. So because I know when we talked, you mentioned or you talked with people, whether it's attorneys or just others in passing, as to whether or not it's protectable, whether or not you should protect it, and kind of what was the idea, or what was kind of the journey on that path of, hey, we've got something we think is cool. Now what do we do, or how do we protect it? What kind of led you to reaching out to me or connecting up?
Well, so there was definitely conflict of opinion. There were some people even within the software team that says, no, you aren't able to patent that. For one reason or another, I don't know why that was their opinion. I know it wasn't. I don't think it was coming from a professional legal standpoint by any means. So I just got and we attended a pitch day down at what's called here in Utah at Silicon Slopes, and was talking with a few different investors down there, and they were starting to mention, well, do you have it protected? Is your intellectual property patentable? And so that got my head thinking again. It was just irony that I was driving down the interstate one afternoon, and a commercial came on the radio, on talk radio, and it happened to be your law firm offering intellectual property patent. And so that was how we connected, not even knowing that we live in the same community.
Right, you connected up, said, hey, why don't we get a phone call scheduled up? And then you notice that the address is just a little bit down the road, and so it made sense to do it face to face. So
it was, and it's like, well, I always am a proponent of supporting local business anyway, but in this 620 square mile valley that we live in, how ironic it was that you were located right here in our community.
Always interesting to see how everybody connects up and how connections are made.
Yeah.
Well, maybe changing tune just a little bit and keeping on that same topic. So kind of as you get in, or people, and part of this podcast is for people that are anywhere along the path, everywhere from they have a great idea and getting going all the way to they've got their startup or small business going and it's getting sales and being successful. But most of the time you read, whether it's a book or you watch a show or an autobiography or whatnot, you always kind of hear the highlights of all the good decisions people have made, and you never get to hear the bad decisions or the bad times. So we'll kind of give you an opportunity to do both. But along this journey, what's kind of been, what would be your best decision and what would be the worst decision you've made?
So, the best decision, well, obviously was initiative to take action.
Mm.
I still just have a passion for this. It just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was a higher power than me that just kept encouraging me to go for it.
Mm.
So that definitely has been the best decision and I think that's a lot of the problem a lot of people have is they're afraid to take that initiative. They're afraid to jump, right?
Yeah.
And, if you don't take that leap of faith, you're never going to know, and you're going to be left wondering, wow, what if,
Yeah.
I don't want to be a what if statistic. I want to be the one that, it shows in the success of whatever the invention is. So that's kind of my driving force behind the best decision. The worst again is just the uncertainty of this whole puzzle, coming together. I'm solely reliant on half of it being my business partner and what he's doing for us. I'm reliant on software company to put our product and give it a face. And I'm reliant on an attorney to patent my intellectual property. There's all these components that go into this, and so. But I just think the worst part is just that uncertainty. Until I see a finished product, there's always that uncertainty of, okay, is this going to happen? Is it going to take place? And it's baby steps. I've had to come to understand that it's a baby step process.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And as a startup or in that mode, you always have kind of some days you're on a high and it's kind of a roller coaster where you'll go up, you'll have a high and things are going great and it's exciting. And then a week later, you're going to be, this is the worst idea ever. Why did I ever go down this path? It's way too much money or time or effort than it's worth. And will it even be successful? So I think a lot of people end up having both of those kind of highs and lows and those doubts and those worries sometimes.
I agree.
Kind of with that, we're kind of getting towards the end of the podcast. So maybe as a way to wrap it up, what advice would you give for somebody that has a great idea, hasn't done anything more with it yet, or wants to get going? What would be kind of your advice to them as to how to, or your best advice that you could give them?
So my advice would be, one, if you can dream it, you can live it. So don't be afraid, whether it seems like you're trying to eat an elephant, you just got to do it one bite at a time. Because if you truly can dream it and you build a passion for it, you can live it. There's no doubt about it. Don't be that, what if person that's just afraid to jump. You need to make the connections, obviously, in both personal connections and business connections, whether it be business to business, resources that can help you with business consulting, and get you on, kind of on that path of where you're headed. I'm certain in any community around, there are some business resources for you, but if you have an idea, you just need to start bringing it to fruition, whether it's writing it down on paper and visualizing it, that way, making those connections. There's some confidentiality things you would definitely want to consider down the road, by way of non-disclosure and things like that. But, a good attorney, can also help you on that end as well.
Perfect. Well, some great advice and hopefully helpful to those that hear the podcast. With that, we'll kind of wrap it up, but to give you a chance to plug your business. So kind of how people, if they're interested, whether getting involved with you or investing or using your product or whatnot, what would be the best way for them to reach out or get in contact with you? So
you can reach me right now. If you go to info@mytripstay.com or jerry@mytripstay.com, that's the best way to reach out to us. I would say those of you that have been familiar with the short-term rental vacation platforms, there's going to be a new kid on the block, per se, that is going to revolutionize the travel industry, the short-term vacation rental industry, and the real estate industry. We have 3 really big components in this, and it's just going to be able to bridge all of that. So, say goodbye to the typical short-term rental vacation platforms out there. Say hello to the new kid on the block, and we'd love to be welcomed with open arms and support.
Perfect. Well, invite everybody, if they're interested, to get involved or to use the product and anticipate its launch. You said it's launching probably mid to the end of next month. Is that right?
Yeah, probably we're slated. We're hoping at least the first part of March.
Okay. Well, then everybody will be on pins and needles to see it launch and or travel with you on the journey to a success. So appreciate you coming on the podcast, and it was great to have you on a guest, and we'll have to have you back sometime.
All right. Thanks, Devin. Have a great day.
Thank you.